Hello and good evening, and I know it's been quite a while. It's joined Caucus on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. 25 days to elections, and now we know for sure, for certain, that 7 candidates are in the race to Flagstaff House for the December polls. After almost a month of legal gymnastics, the EC reviewed the nomination process, giving clearance for balloting. With candidates and parties now aware of where they stand, their electoral activities are moving full speed ahead. Tonight on Joint Caucus, we considered the preparations set by the EC and whether the parties are confident in the process. My name is Jifa Bampo. We'll be right back after this break. So thank you very much for joining us here on Joint Caucus on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. And our guest tonight, Deputy CEO of the National Youth Authority and Secretary to the NDC's Manifesto Committee, Peter Otokuno. Also, the NPP parliamentary candidate for Lojakuku, Dr. Oko Boy. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you for coming in.
Thank you, my sister.
All right.
Except that you need to be updated later.
Okay.
I have not been with NYA since last December.
Okay.
I'm the Deputy Director of Research for the party.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the correction.
That's a very big post, you know.
Well, now we know that certain elections are happening on December 7th. The EC chairperson, Charlotte Osei, has been explaining the process actually even since last week. She was in London on the BBC. She was at Chatham House. Yesterday, she met with editors to give an insight into plans so far. And top on the minds of many is about what the process will be. And there were also issues relating to proxy voting, special voting. We know that there's some legal issues there. But let's hear what Mrs. Osei has been saying about special voting and proxy voting.
For instance, we were in a commission meeting just before we went. We were trying to finalize the evaluation of the nomination forms and announce the final list, when we got a message that someone was saying on a radio station that the EC is planning to use the proxy process to rig the elections, and that this year 270,000 people are going to be taking part in this process, and it has been designed as a main vehicle for rigging the elections. We were pretty stunned, and so I said, okay, let's find out. So we called our IT staff and said, how many voters are on the list of proxy voters for this year? Just confirm it. Do we have 270,000 people on the list? They were like, no. How many people are taking part in proxy voting this year? And the answer was 534.
You're welcome back. So let me turn to our two guests. Let me start first with Dr. Okoboy. Confident in the processes that Madam has outlined?
Yeah, let me first of all say a very good evening to all our viewers. You see, I always say that every institution cannot be operating at perfect levels. There are things they might do right, there are things they might do wrong. So it's important to make sure that as a party we remain vigilant and make sure that the processes appear to be transparent, not only appear to be transparent, but actually are transparent and are being impartial to all the stakeholders. You know, for us to have taken the commission to court on the collation sheets issue to make sure that we, the parties, are giving the collation sheets. For parties like PPP to have taken the Electoral Commission to court, for them to be included in the list, and now, thankfully, they are there. You'd realize that they are not a perfect institution. They can take decisions that are subject to criticism or that could be improved by the courts or corrected. So, largely, I would say that it's not a broken system. It's a system that can work, but we all must contribute to make it work. I was happy with what Thaddeus Sori said in court when the judges ruled that the Supreme Court ruled that they should let them correct their mistakes. He said he's happy because at the end the democracy is being entrenched, and that is good for the whole country. So that's what we have. The commission is what we have for now, and we have to manage it. And I would like to beg those who are uncomfortable with criticisms. Every institution that would improve in the future should open its arms to criticism. It's the only way that you can be improved upon. So those are my initial remarks.
Okay, but you mentioned something about the whole process.
Yeah.
There are also those who may say that parties may be nitpicking at issues that may not necessarily be the case. The coalition case, for instance, I understand that the EC had in principle committed to providing these sheets.
That is where the danger is. Committing to give it out in principle, but not being captured explicitly
in the law.
Exactly. And when you are pushing, when worst has come to worst, assuming they are not doing what they promised, and you are pushing them, you go to the courts. It's only the law that can help you to make your case. And people should not try to mix the issues. The EC was in court with their lawyers as an antagonist. If they are not, what I mean by antagonist is that they were there to argue against, with our lawyers. If they were
opposed to your position.
Exactly. So if it was a case that they were actually committed and it was going to give it out anyways, they shouldn't have been in court opposing our arguments. So let's settle on that. These are some of the tiny things that sometimes raises anxieties with some of the stakeholders. That why should we really have arguments in court over coalition sheets, and then later you go I was going to give it to you anyway. So by and large, from day one, I've always told people that the Electoral Commission should adopt the path of dialogue rather than litigation. Litigation is the last thing we should be doing, because by nature, litigation is acrimonious. It's you versus me, and there is no middle ground. And it can get nasty, it can get very tedious. And like Atukuba said in the last election petition, don't tell people you can go to court, So what I'm saying is that this is the only commission we have. We have to manage it and make sure that it works. And I would encourage all parties to be tolerant to criticism. That's my only issue. In this country, when you criticize the system, some people go you undermine. That's not it.
We'll come to talk a little more about that, because I know where you're headed. So, Mr. Otukuno, so your thoughts on 25 days more? I guess it seems everything is clearer now where we all stand. There's a suggestion that, well, for you are the ruling party, so you agree with everything.
No, not necessarily. We don't agree with everything, Jifa. I think that where we have disagreed with the EC, we have made the point. And, we have always believed in structures. We believe that the Electoral Commission, as by law, are supposed to be independent. But by convention, there is what we call the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, which we remain members. And we believe that issues of, elections and issues of electoral reforms, that is the best platform to discuss them, not on radio. So most often we don't hear us, argue with the EC on radio, because we believe in following the structures. And we believe that there is a need for consistency. When we agree on something at IPAC, we don't play that kind of ostrich politics where we come out and oppose what we have agreed in IPAC. So most often you don't hear the NDC come out on radio, make all the noise against the EC. But we have some strong differences most of the times at IPAC. And when we agree at IPAC, we have agreed. We will never go against that agreement. That is why perhaps...
What do you make of the point Dr. Koboy made about the fact that there should be more dialogue? It shouldn't be about litigation. It seems that this whole process, right, for the last year or so has been all about litigation, right from the fight about NHIS registrants on the register, all through up until this point.
Indeed, it has been as a result of lack of good faith from the MPP. That is why it appears only the MPP make all this noise. Because as I said,
but there's also the institution that some people have been critical of, not necessarily just the MPP. The PPP has been critical, so also has the
only
APC.
time you have seen APC, PPP.
There have been individuals who took the EC to court. Apparently, Jacob Osayabwa took the EC to court.
And was thrown out. But Jifa, the point I want to make is that, you see, in those cases, those are not cases that were discussed at IPAC. Those were cases that was related to their political party or their person. You understand? So they were championing something for themselves, not for the electoral reforms. on issues of electoral reforms, we have always remained with the decision that we take at those committee levels. You recall that even before this year's election, there was a committee after the Supreme Court ruling that was set to look at the general electoral reforms. Most of the recommendations that were made was agreed to by the MPP. But subsequently, they went out there and changed their position, and it became a whole big issue. They brought this 76,000 phantom names from Togo, which we are still, hoping to ascertain where they got it from. That issue is
no more on the table as we know.
I agree with you that it's no more. But we are still worried because, indeed, it was complete deception. You understand? So that is where the problem lies. If a group of people decide that they would deliberately misinform people just to put the EC in bad light, just to floor the entire electoral process, then it becomes worrying for all the players in the electoral process.
Are you worried? And that brings me, as you mentioned, numbers, brings us to the point about the proxy voting and the special voting. I know there's some litigation. We are not going to the merits of that. But does that worry you at all? The EC chairperson indicated her shock when they were told that, some 270,000 people or so were going to be doing the proxy voting. She says there are only 534. And then even for the special voting, she says, just a little over 29,000. They went to check at the commission. Do these figures worry you, or are you worried that there's a suggestion that these could be an option for manipulation?
Yes, there is always options for manipulations if you don't guard the process very well. And we don't think the process of proxy voting and special voters and all that, could necessarily amount to some alteration of the electoral results. We believe that with the biometric system that we are running, and the fact that now the system that has been put in place is such that after voting, your entire data on the machine is destroyed. So you can't come back and vote. You can't vote anywhere again. If we are going to keep to that process and we don't allow the system to get corrupted along the line, then we don't have that problem. We don't have anything to be scared of.
Yeah, so for you, you are confident in the processes in place so far? I'm
sure we are all confident in the process.
Well, I'll come to ask him if
I'm sure we are all confident. Where we have problems, we have raised those issues. With the issue of the statement of poll being given to us and all that, we have shared the same issue with the MPP, that we need to have the pink sheets. We need to have them. So, I mean, it's not as if we have always, accepted everything that the EC has done. We have heard a lot of criticisms from the MPP, a lot of unholy accusations, to the extent that we were colluding with the EC to remove people from the ballot, to remove presidential candidates and all that. They have even accused us of supporting the APC. But, I mean, when they went for the review, APC did not, reflect on the on the ballot sheet. So is it because we are still colluding? Do they hold that same opinion? So it's politics we are doing. But I would advise and admonish our colleagues on the MPP, from the MPP side, to be very cautious, because this is a state institution, and as much as we bastardize them, it comes back to haunt us. So if you win,
that's the elections, if they were to win and to be in office,
it comes back to haunt you. So I mean, we should be very careful and magnanimous in our criticisms.
Dr. Boy, now that you know what the figures are for special voting, now that you know what the figures are for proxy voting, do you still think that that could be manipulated?
Yeah, before I come to that, he said the Electoral Commission is an independent institution. These are some of the things people throw out there when you are criticizing the institution, as if to say once an institution is independent, leave them alone to do what they like. The independence is given to the institution so that as much as possible, you can limit interferences from outside bodies, so they can use their jurisdiction or their, their judgment in the way that will aid the process and be fair to all parties. So that if the independence, instead of being a tool for being impartial, becomes a tool for stepping on somebody's rights, they can run to the courts. And as we saw in the PPP's case, sometimes people's claims can be legitimate. Look, the Electoral Commission, the trust level can go up with, like, in the heart of Ghanaians, or can go down depending on events that happen.
But there have been polls from the NCC, polls from the CDD that indicate that Ghanaians' confidence in the Electoral Commission is really, up there. In fact, they have praised the Electoral Commission for seeking to clean up the system.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that...
In fact, the NPP praised the Electoral Commission for removing the people until they realized that it was going to hurt them. They changed their position.
You know, after the election petition, polls that were done showed that the level of confidence went down, like it was way down. It started coming up when we saw some reforms and some of these processes coming from the EC.
And implementing the decisions from the Supreme Court petition.
And let's remember that some of these polls preceded these current judgments that came from the courts.
True.
Now, so I always say that when you always like end up in court with your stakeholders, anytime they win, it hurts your morale as an institution.
Not necessarily.
You say not necessarily, but here you are at the table with Papa Kwesindo. This is somebody who, in your judgment, shouldn't have been on the ballot. Through the courts, he managed to get on the ballot. Now, when you say something and he has anxieties, it is because of some of the precedents. But now let me come to another issue.
The numbers,
Before I come to the number, he said when a party deliberately misinforms referring to the 70,000, sometimes it's not too proper to, to ascribe or to attribute ill will to some of these comments. The list that came from Dr. Baumia, the Electoral Commission just said that they didn't get the original from
They said there was no way they could verify because they could not get.
So if you have a list which you've been unable to verify, you'll be jumping ahead of time to say that it is fraudulent. You got what I mean?
Okay, but I don't want us to go to because that's a whole different conversation. Because the reality,
he used an expression. You see, he used an expression deliberately misformed.
So for you, it was research.
It is below the belt.
For you, it was research.
It
was research that generated those figures for you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because
the commission
that's why I said that
the commission didn't go into it.
They requested for you to help them to do that, and you refused.
Okay, Mr. Tukuno, just hold on. The point that's a slightly different conversation that I don't want us to go too deeply into. The point I just think to make on that is, I think the whole criticism about that was that it seemed to have targeted one region. Maybe if it had been done across all the regions that are border areas, then it would have seemed fair.
What Baumia said was that others would follow. But because the commission...
It never came.
The commission in their actions clearly showed, they didn't show much interest in pursuing the matter.
No.
Now, if you've given 10% of your work and it's not being investigated or it's not being pursued, why would you bring the 90%? No. You stayed somewhere.
We were flawed at the commission's request to discuss the new voter register. You were flawed.
Come to this IPAC, the proxy matter.
Okay, please, we need to deal with that.
I know, just before I do that, it's very important to mention that in as much as we have IPAC, there's been many instances where the commission has been unilateral in their actions with, and they didn't take their proposals or suggestions to IPAC. One critical example is the cost for filing, the filing fees. Yeah. And you see, the PPP said that.
But I understand that was raised at the IPAC meeting.
No. They were so shocked. The PPP said that they were in an IPAC meeting, and they were so shocked that just the next day the commission came out and announced the fees when it was not even mentioned at the IPAC meeting. So we've had instances where the commission has avoided bringing certain critical issues, like these coalition sheets. If IPAC is properly functioning, we shouldn't have it dealt with in the courts. The proxy issue you raised.
Are you satisfied? She's given the figures now.
But how you have to investigate the figures. That's why you see.
Why not have trust? in what the figures say?
It's how do you call it? It's not a matter of mistrust. You are just being meticulous. You see, you are a proper organization. When you are given a list, that is a proxy list, it's 500. Then you go like, okay, I'm happy or I trust. That is not too proper.
But obviously, it's a far cry from the 270,000 that was mentioned on a radio station, which the chairperson was unhappy about.
That's why I said that let's not be too
judgmental.
Quick. Yes, let's get the commission mentioned that it was about 500 something and not the
534.
Good. And we have, it's been given to our party, I assume so. We are going to go through it. If everything is proper, why not? I started by telling that this is the only commission we have. It does not also mean that you don't open your eyes and be vigilant. So we should just be calm. We are going to go through the list and make sure that the process is proper and fair. That's about it.
I think it's interesting what he says, because
very
the reason why I say so is I think the main thing that has been raised in the process to election is that is won or lost at the polling centers. And so for the MPP, their determination is that at the polling centers, they will be keeping an eagle eye on things. So I guess it doesn't seem wrong to want to cross your T's and dot your I's.
Not at all. But you see, it is very surprising when in crossing the T's and dotting the I's, you appear very suspicious of everything that the Electoral Commission does. Indeed, we have also been very critical and very vigilant all the time in terms of our electoral process. And there is no way you can win an election without being smart and vigilant about it. Coming on radio and TV and making all the noise.
But Mr. Otukuno, I'm sure the Supreme Court petition revealed that sheets were not signed. Yeah. How do you know? People probably colluded to make it look like everything was A-okay. So
no, I agree. But the point I'm making is that we have always remained vigilant. Now, what is happening from the MPP side is clear case of, bad faith and some form of mistrust and trying to punch, holes where there are none. The issue really about this voter register, for example, that the MPP have been to market with, they have been giving corrupted documents. They requested, that we bring hard drives to come for the data. If you send a corrupted hard drive and you come back and you are not able to open, why will you blame the EC? All political parties went for it. It is only the MPP that had a problem. And they have been to market and attacked the EC, said all manner of things against the EC. What I would admonish our friends in the MPP to do is that they would have to take the process a little bit more seriously.
You keep criticizing the MPP, but I think there are other political parties who've been equally robust in their criticism.
I am yet.
Not even just Mr. The PPP has been quite
PNC,
critical. The PNC.
And I made that point earlier that on special cases of their disqualification.
So essentially, there are some cases of principle that run across.
Yes, there are cases of principle. For example, they are giving voter register to all political parties.
But
so if you only have the MPP,
but you and I know that delay. It should have happened on September
20th. I agree. And we were on the neck of the EC just as well as the MPP. Will you let me finish?
Okay, let him finish making the point because I have to wrap this up.
When after you have been given the document and you come back with this cock and bull stories, it has been they deliberately corrupted our own and all that. It makes it a bit more worrying. So all that I'm saying is that we should be very, very, very careful with the things that we say and the things that we do. Otherwise, we risk getting, the feeling from the voters that you are behaving defeatist.
Everything is a complaint. Okay, so 1 minute because I need to move on.
On this. 1 minute. Let me say here now that when people raise queries or they have anxieties, it is part of the job of the commission.
But you are being overly anxious.
Mr. Otukuno, allow
when people raise queries and anxieties, it is proper that the commission comes out in ways that will address their concerns and bring down the fears. We've had issues in court that show that they are not a perfect institution. Sometimes they go wrong. And on a lighter note, if you are going into a football match and the referee was appointed by the head of your team, you have every reason to be calm and not be worried too much. So I understand Otukuno. You understand?
Nice way to end this segment. Yes. And it's still Join Caucus on the Joy News channel on Multi TV. And we take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about another nagging issue, which is a suggestion about a recount if the margins from the presidential polls are really, really close. We'll dig into that a little bit when we come back.
She just came from court bruised.
Thank you very much for staying with us here on Multi TV on the Joy News channel. It's Join Caucus. If you're just joining us, we have representatives from the two political parties discussing the process towards election, the plans the Electoral Commission has made so far. And we all know that our elections tend to be quite close. 2008, some 28,000. 2012, 32,000, thereabouts.
At the national level?
Yes.
It was around 40,000.
Okay, nearing
340,000.
Okay. I think the concern that was raised is about a comment from the Electoral Commissioner that if the margins are too close, there could be a recount. Let me start with you, Mr. Otukuno. What's your general experience? Because what I know is that polling stations, sometimes there are recounts that happen over and over.
I think generally recounting has been part of our electoral process for a very long time. I am struggling to know the kind of recount that she's referring to this time around. I don't know whether it's a national recount, but indeed you cannot do national recount because the counting is done at the polling stations. Even at the constituency level, they do collation. Now, if there are challenges or doubts from the polling stations, they bring that problematic box from that polling station and recount it at the collation center. Then they can ascertain what the real figures are. Then, after the collation, the figures are sent to the National Collation Center where it is declared. I have a problem where the counting, this particular counting is coming from, because
we can bring you her visual now.
Okay.
Let's hear what she said, because she spoke on the BBC. There was a certain suggestion that we didn't quite get what she meant, so she tried to clarify that yesterday.
I think that people got the issue of the recount wrong. First of all, when you are managing elections, even international best practices require that when the results are too close to call, you take your time and make sure it is right. And we've seen situations like in Gabon recently, where conflict broke out because one party wanted a recount. The Electoral Commission refused to do the recount, and it became a conflict situation. All we were saying was that it is better to be safe than sorry. The returning officer has a duty, and yes, a party can request it, and if the party requests it, at the polling station you can request for a recount. If you want another recount, then it has to move to the constituency collation center. But also at the discretion of the returning officer, if they think that it is too close, maybe one vote difference, 2 votes difference, may be safer for you to finish and then do it all over again just to check. That's all we're saying. And we do not know why there is such an issue about it. Should we go ahead and declare the first set of results we get? Even if it's, let's say, a 1,000 margin, we shouldn't check it. All we're saying is that part of international best practices, when it is that close, it is usually safer and more prudent for the Electoral Commission to just check it again and make sure everything is right.
EC chairperson there, Madam Charlotte Osei. Okay, so Peter, she seems to have given us a little more explanation. So based on the discussions I'm sure you've had at IPAC, so the decision is what? Polling stations will count? I
think from her comments, it's very, very clear. I mean, if it's at the national level, then obviously we would have to count every single polling station once again. And since we know all our polling agents, we know all our polling officers, we know all our presiding officers, it can easily be done. I mean, after voting and the first counting, all the ballot boxes are sealed and they are returned to the EC's office. Now, what parties would have to do now as part of our training to our agents is that you don't have to take note of only the seal that comes with the ballot boxes in the morning. But after you have sealed the counting, now you have to take note of the seal numbers too, so that if it appears that we are going to do recounting,
then you need to be sure that the box that is being opened has the matching seal.
Has the matching seal, and that is what you counted. I think now the EC is working away from potential court cases, because you can't say that if people protest that they want a recount, you will not do the recount. That may generate into something else. So I think it's a very good position there. I heard that Prof. Michael Quay was raising issues. I don't know what exactly he was talking about. Perhaps maybe if you watch this video, he'll review his position.
Dr. Boyd.
Yeah, I think initially the way she couched it on the international platform,
BBC, yes.
It created an impression of the results of the presidential. If they happen to be close, maybe we have to do some recount. And people were asking themselves, how was it going to be
done?
Yes, done. Is it going to be at the coalition or whatever? You know what? If the process, the management of the election process, is done very well, like we saw in the US, the commission will have little to do in terms of the announcement of the results or the coalition. It's their job to announce. But even the NDC, any party that is serious, at the police station level, if you are there, you know the results, It's captured on a pick sheet. It's put on the
yes. The plan is to project the results.
Yeah. And you go to the collation center. You have the collation sheets, everything. Now, and the national one, like when you collate everything. You remember, CNN is not the election management body of the US.
Certainly.
Yet that was one of the platforms that everybody was following who was winning.
But Joy News did that last year.
Yeah, I know you also
did it excellently.
Now, that is to tell you that to a larger extent, if the process is that decentralized, the way we are looking at, you will not need something like a recount at the top.
The parties themselves will be aware of what the situation is on the ground.
And you know, being vigilant, like I always say, when you try to be vigilant, people go like, you have been too suspicious. This collation sheets matter. It's one of the very foundations on which you can comment on how authentic the national results that is announced is. You know, when we went to the court's election petition, we're asking the judges to ask the commission to bring the collation sheets.
You and I were.
No, I'm coming. The judges didn't yield to that. Now, that's why now we went to the courts before this election.
So that you could have your own copy.
Exactly. You know, and that is to tell you that vigilance must be not only on the voting day, but prior to the voting day. And when any serious party, like the NPP is doing, you look at all the details and make sure everything is well placed. On the election day, even if, I don't believe it is so, the one managing the process is prejudiced, it cannot affect the process.
She has indicated that there is nothing
she can do anything.
She can't do anything. There was a precursor. I said, I don't believe it is so.
Yes, it's just that I think
she wants to even make that.
You see, the
reason why I'm raising this is partly because I think Mrs. Osei has, time without number, sought to emphasize when she met the National House of Chiefs.
I think we shouldn't go into that detail. You see,
if I didn't know the electoral process, you know that she cannot do anything
about it. Look, let's be real.
Because there are people who still accuse and suggest that she can manipulate.
They do that.
I don't know about the NPP in recent times.
You know what? Let's be real. The viewers are out there. There are a significant number of Ghanaians who sometimes feel that, oh, this woman might be prejudiced.
So let's
I'm coming. Yes, that's why you see, I chose my words well. I'm looking at the process. I've told viewers that that's why every serious party must look at the details and make sure that the plans that are put in place are that proper. And I said, I don't believe she's prejudiced. But even if anybody has suspicions about her,
the system should work.
The system, it's explanatory, self-explanatory.
Oh, you don't believe she's prejudiced?
Now I'm even to a greater extent trying to say that because the systems are being put in place with the help of all stakeholders, including the NPP, to a larger extent, what is going to happen on that day cannot be influenced. You understand what I'm saying? By an outside body. And that is why people should be tolerant to criticisms. I'll say this again. The first I said was on a lighter note. When you are going into a match and you appointed a referee, you have every reason to be calm. But just respect the anxieties of your opponents. Only make sure they are addressed.
We are not calm. We are not calm. Because it doesn't work like that. You see, you must also bear in mind that the referee does not run the elections alone. She runs the elections with linesmen. Another
okay, but even so, in talking about being certain about the process, 25 days to elections, we already have electoral violence happening. I spoke to one of your leading NPP members complaining about attacks on some members of your party in Brunhafo in Esutifi. They're accusing leading members of the NDC of masterminding some of these attacks, and that's why the police are unable to take action. And that could also prejudice people's thinking. It may generate a certain, feeling that, oh, this whole area, the people have already planned something. So it may not necessarily be the electoral commissioner. How can we deal with it?
It has happened, I think generally this year's election has been peaceful. We have not had that level of bigotry that characterized last election. This or die be die and all that.
Certainly not, but there have been people who have been injured.
I think it's been generally peaceful. I heard of the Odododo incident, and I've heard of a couple of incidents where NDC people have also been
injured. Yes,
you understand, and they've been injured. I think that we should all decry, such occurrences, and get people to appreciate that. I mean, elections is there is no reason why I think somebody should hurt because of elections. Because at the end of the day, I mean, whether you like it or not, only one political party will win. We must just understand ourselves. And we should watch our comments with the leaders. Most of the claims that we make they form the precursors for some of this violence. You know, apportioning blames and creating, you know, perceptions where there are none, negative perceptions where there are none. I mean, accusing people here and there, that raises the tensions of our party supporters, and that, you know, puts them in that situation. So I think that we must all play our role. You know,
I did indicate
as players in the electoral process, we must play our role to educate our people, to let them understand that, I mean, we are the same people. Most often you go to our homes and the wife and the husband, one is MPP, one is NDC. You know, a man can be NDC, or the children can be MPP, and it happens. Even at the, you know, the top circles, you have people who are brothers, blood brothers, who belong to different political parties. So we must watch the way we do our politics. We should reduce the level of bigotry, the level of suspicion, and the way we present issues when we are given the opportunity in the media, most especially.
But isn't it also the case, Dr. Boy, that we should rather go for the security agencies to deal with this matter instead of directly making accusations at people when really we can't exactly see the proof of it, we were not there?
Yeah, I agree. You know what? And again, it comes to criticizing state institutions, people interpreting it as not liking them or attacking them. Look, if this country, if our elections will be peaceful, if the process will be calm, a lot will have to be done by the police, like you said. You see,
I agree.
I'm a parliamentary candidate. I believe that if, sorry, excuse me.
Your area is considered one of the hotspots.
Yes. But you see, you've not heard anything from Lechikuku.
No.
Why? Because everywhere I go to even places where it's assumed to be NDC strongholds, and I tell them we are all brothers. It's one people. We are not the enemy. My brother here is, excuse me, is not my enemy. I tell them the enemy is the poverty we try to fight, the corruption, the unemployment, the health issues. That is the enemy. But we claim to be better fighters. Choose who is better. And when I talk to them, they are calm. I tell my guys, don't use harsh language on them. They are supposed to be your brothers. If I want to win them over, if you speak ill, they'll move away. But the issue, this is what leads to violence. It is so sad when you know that you are also a confident person, yet you can see a colleague or a friend misbehaving, threatening to hurt people, or actually hurting them.
You.
Yes, and yet you see a policeman and he looks like he can't do anything.
Unconcerned.
You know, so I'm begging the police. I will not mention the party, but the complaints you've heard from all places, it so happens that you have somebody who allegedly misbehaved. Nobody picks him up. The others go like, what is happening? Like in Suhum, so some people went to...
I understand the Suhum cases are in
the
courts.
Electoral Commission office, yes, you know that. Okay, so...
Some is even happening in Okre. You have a parliamentary candidate mount his balls, the next morning is down. And he has reported it about 5 times, and they always do same. All the billboards the next morning is down. So when the party people confront, when they meet you doing it, it will tend chaotic.
You see, so, and we as leaders should also calm the process. Leadership is very important in this. You know, I'll give an example. In my constituency, I had the youth organizer from the NDC calling me that, they had some of their paraphernalia destroyed at one of our strongholds. And I said, why should they do that? I'll call them and talk to them. And I actually begged him. But I have had some of mine destroyed. I didn't call anybody because I know some people don't understand the politics we do. Now, we've had a lot of reports from BA that, I don't know.
There have been attacks. We understand one person is injured in hospital.
So if we have things like that, it's the seeds that are actually coming up. We should have strong leadership go there. There must be a comment from who is the regional boss that, look, we will not tolerate this, whether it's from my party or not. The IGP must make its people make statements so that both parties will know that violence will not be tolerated. So the police, I'm begging the police, much will depend on them. We too will speak to our guys to be calm. But the police should make sure that they're impartial. Look, if they pick one MPP
I think the bigger responsibility lies on us.
Yeah, but you see,
but I think the police must make examples of people so that
the
people
bigger
don't...
responsibility.
You know what? The reason why...
So they would have to take part, but the bigger responsibility
the reason
lies
why,
on us.
you see, we deal with adults. Every voter is about 18 years, right? I can tell him, look, these are the things you have to do. There are a lot of people who can defy you and do what they like and actually cause trouble. If the policeman goes to do his job and picks this gentleman up, whether it's from the MPP or NDC, it will send a strong word to the others.
But we have cases in this country where police arrest party people and they match up to the police station.
And that's so many of them. There are also cases where people are appointed as an MC or a DC also goes to pull them out. So I think both sides need to deal with this matter.
But you see, when we continue with the trend where a party person misbehaves, he is arrested, then all of a sudden they start calling people to mass up. Look at what happened with the Dabusi gentleman when BNI picked him. I mean, it was embarrassing. You have things like this said against your president. He's arrested, and you not even want to listen to the issues, and you match up. I think that
it's good for him.
That is why I'm saying that
it's good for him not to go there.
Doc, I'm coming.
The gentleman who was picked up by BNI for writing.
Doc, I'm coming.
You pick a gentleman who writes an article.
Doc, it's also about what he wrote.
What he wrote can be outright.
The bigger responsibility lies with you and I. Now, if we decide that we are not going to support anybody who misbehaves, then we will be heading somewhere.
Excellent.
But when you have a political party, entire machinery, mobilized to any kind of arrest at all, then you have a problem.
Now let me explain.
You can't have that kind of peace.
Let me
because the people will not even go and report to the police again, because they know that when they go and report to the police, you must have. And the next moment, the police people will be intimidated and will leave the person.
Okay, I think you made that point. We need to wrap up so that I can get your final comments
on the
US election.
When people sense injustice, even in the actions of the law enforcement bodies, you can have citizens crying out foul. Let's please. I kept quiet when you're speaking. Please look at this gentleman. Let's even assume, without admitting, that he wrote outright nonsense about the president. It's speech or writing, reckless writing. You have BNI picking the gentleman up, and when you have others threatening judges, BNI tells you that they don't have the capacity to execute what we're saying. People weigh and realize that this law enforcement body is biased in the actions. Jifa, if the police, the BNI, whatever bodies, will deal equally with all parties, Ghanaians will not rise up and run to the police headquarters when somebody speaks up. They will know that the system is working.
You know what? So if you have been in the system, it has always been the case.
Please be calm.
Okay, Mr. Otokuno, I think you made that point.
Don't take the voter or citizen for granted. They can read between the lines. They can tell that
it still amounts to the same thing you've been saying about institutions acting fairly, and that's what will
bring calm,
keep the process running smoothly. So we have some 7-8 minutes. Let me take some final comments. It's been on the US election. It's been a busy week. Many Ghanaians have been almost obsessed following those elections up until the results were declared. Let me start with the MPP, because you guys align yourselves with the Republican Party, and you're already doing some voodoo analysis, I understand. So your thoughts on Trump's win?
It's interesting when I listened. It was actually interesting when I listened to the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Asenu-Ketia, who said Trump is like Nana Akufo-Addo and their candidate is Hillary Clinton, and they believe Hillary will win, and
the opposite happened.
If I am
General. Oh, please.
No, I didn't hear him. So you tell me what you think.
On the more serious note, I think Trump said some outrageous things, but basically when you talk to most of the people who voted for him, they had issues. They were looking at other issues which were weightier than his comments, like the economy, jobs being shipped outside and all that. And there is a significant lesson from that when you bring it to our local politics here. With all the shouts from, some of commentators, others saying that, okay, we've built roads. Some said we are going to commission a flyover. Some said, okay, this guy is violent. This guy talk like that. At the end of the day, the voter is going to look at their condition of living. It's good to build road, but what is the impact on productivity? How has it impacted on my life? It's good to build hospitals, but what is the condition? What is the level of motivation of the nurse who is in the hospital? It's good to have the highways, but what about the taxi driver, the trotro driver, whose job site is on a highway?
So for you, Ghanaians will make their decision
based on the very significant,
on what their life is like now.
The salient issues, what their life is on right now. And I tell people all the time, look, when President John Dramani Mahama said in 2008, when they were in opposition, that President Kufuor has built the N1 highway, he's brought NHIS and all of things.
2008, there was no N1 highway.
Please. But it had started. Yes. Because we also talk about infrastructure.
And one highway was just about 2% complete. They had not even laid a single gutter.
But the fund has been secured from
yes, it was the funds.
And once you have the fund, you know that project.
So your point is,
I need to come to Mr. When he talked about all those things, President Obama said, look, when you engage in comparison of infrastructure levels, to a larger extent, it's an exercise in mediocrity. The most important thing is the standard or condition of living of the Ghanaian. And that is what is also going to play out in this election. We, as a party, have said the biggest problem in this country is unemployment. 48% of the youth unemployed. And we are going to address that issue. And that's what Ghanaians are going to base on to vote for the MPP this time.
The total working population of this country is 10.5. Of that 10.5, 98.1% of them are employed. It is 1.9 that is unemployed. That is according to the report.
This World Bank
statistics. Please. That is according to that World Bank report. Now, the World Bank report with the 48% is
refers
that between
to
15 to 25. In fact, 15 to 24.
And that's a critical mass.
Please. Our youth age in Ghana is 15 to 35.
Now,
please, we have just 3 minutes.
The 48% is 15 to 24. And in Ghana, 15 to 24, they are all in school. In fact, before you move out of the university, you'll be around 24, 25.
But you and I know that graduate unemployment is a serious
problem. I am trying to tell you that what he's saying is not the case.
Okay.
The 48%
the figures,
according to that particular
it's
report,
restricted to a particular
in fact,
age
if we
group.
are going by that report, unemployment is 1.9%.
Really?
Now, if we are going by that report, that 48%, 15 to 24, they are all in school. And they gave a caveat that in Ghana, 15 to 24, they should either be in secondary school or in the university. So mostly those who fall along the line are those who will be looking for jobs. And if about 52% of them are employed, I think that is very significant. If you have young people between 15 to 24,
it's about how much they're making as well.
Employed, I think that is very, very
It's about how much they're making.
But be that as it may, I think that I agree with Doc that the issues really that the Ghanaians are going to vote based on are issues that directly affect them. Now, if the people of Adenta did not have water some time back, and today they have water, I am sure if they are going to vote, they will really consider that.
But they are paying
higher bills. If they were carrying Kufuor gallons,
but they are paying higher bills,
and walking several distances to get good water to drink, if they were sharing water with the cattle, and now they have potable water to drink, I think those are the things that would.
But we're going to briefly tell me what General Mosquito said.
Yes, in fact, General never said that we are supporting Hillary Clinton. He has never said that.
What did he say?
In fact, what he said was that the bigotry that is being expressed by Donald Trump, the outrageous comment, the unreasonability of his comment, clearly sounds like the MPP. So he was not comparing Republicans and Democrats. Indeed, the American elections is a lesson to all of us that we shouldn't listen and follow polls. We get URU saying that Hillary Clinton will win, Nanado will win. Now Hillary has lost. We are waiting for the Nanado one. But it appears that there's a political party in this country that follows polls so much. We don't follow the polls. We work. We get there. We reach out to the people and make sure that they vote for us. We protect the ballot and make sure that we secure the victory. We are going to do the same this year, and JM is going to Twaso. JM is going to get a second term. So that, I mean, let's not.
The power is not
anyway. So that's where we have to end. I think that was a nice note to end on.
Let's not enter the realm of fallacy.
I want to say thank you to Deputy Director of Research for the NDC, Secretary to the NDC Manifesto Committee, Peter Otokuno. Thanks to MPP Parliamentary Candidate for Lojekuku, Dr. Okoboy. Thank you all for watching. Have a good evening.